Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome to the X's and T podcast, where we talk about X's and T with your hosts, Corey
and Dani. Hey there, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
We're so excited to have you back, as always.
We're taking you on the wild ride of Dani's story about the cult part 2 today.
The cult part 2.
This is the juicy part.
It really is, because there's so much.
Yeah.
I'm still watching The Handmaid's Tale. Still so good.
I'm still not.
We'll get her on it, you guys, I promise. She sleeps on the best shows, and then she watches them and she's like, where has this been my whole life?
Basically, yeah.
Which will definitely be I know you really well, and I know you're gonna like The Handmaid's Tale. You're gonna be like,
I'll have to give it a go.
It's intense. Trigger warning for anybody who watches it. It's got SA and R word in there. So we don't want you to watch it if it's not for you. But if it is okay for you to watch that, definitely do. What about you, Corey? What's been up? Just new job?
Yeah, nothing exciting.
Same shit, different day?
Basically.
Hey, no news is good news.
It is, yeah. I mean, you don't want anything crazy to happen. Although my car...
Oh, yeah. Corey's car. What's the scoop now?
So I bought this car. I'll just preface this. I bought it very cheap. I bought it for $3,000. So I expected some things to be wrong with it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, we fixed a bunch of little things when I first got the car. And then, a month and a half into it, it started having, this issue, a transmission issue.
Yeah.
And long story short, we thought that I needed a new TCM, which is the transmission control module. Yeah. So my dad ordered it, got the part. My dad used to be a mechanic for 30 years, just so you know. Preface that. So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he changed that out, put the new one in, and basically I only had second gear.
What?
So my dad's like, what the fuck, basically.
Right.
And then he noticed that he took the key out of the ignition in my car, and he noticed that it's burning up.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's hot as fuck. If he put it on himself, it would have burned his skin.
No way.
Yeah, so, and then he felt around with the starter where the starter is and stuff, and he was feeling around, and it was hot as hell too.
Right.
And he's like, that's not fucking good. It's gonna catch on fire.
That's not good.
So yeah, he took all that apart, and I don't know what he's doing now, to be honest. I think he's gonna replace it, because obviously that's not a normal thing. It shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So I don't know. The last update I had, my car's torn apart in my parents' garage right now. So I've been using my mom's car for the past week and a half.
And that one has also
had issues. The AC went out in it.
And it's summertime in Arizona,
yeah. So I've been driving this car. Mind you, it's a black car.
Oh.
So it's hot as fuck.
It's a nice car, though.
It is nice. But, oh, God, it would be great if the AC worked. It, half works. So the driver's side air conditioning, it works. But, kinda, it's not as cold as it should be.
Right.
And then the passenger side, it's just hot air that it blows.
Gosh.
And my dad just hasn't had time to look at that because he's been working and stuff. And then they're leaving this weekend, and they're going on vacation. So I'm like, great, okay, I'll just suffer and die.
Suffer and die. Well, at least we have AC in the house.
Oh, thank God.
Corey's car troubles, everybody.
Yeah. Welcome to my life. My life is a shit show.
99 problems, but a bitch ain't one, right? Yeah, so at least men aren't your problem.
That's true. Fuck them.
Yeah.
No offense if you're a man, but...
Respectfully,
fuck you.
I mean, if you've heard our previous episodes, you would know that we have a lot of issues with men, especially if you're named Kyle. Just kidding. We have a nice Kyle. I know for sure we have one good
That's
Kyle
true,
to listen.
yeah.
Nicest guy ever.
And apparently I just like to date toxic men because that's all that I ever fucking date.
Dude, same. Except for my current significant other.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. We love him.
Yeah.
But
thank God my ex is gone.
Skedaddled
on out of here.
So, fun fact about her ex-boyfriend. Can I tell the simp story real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, just don't use his name.
No, we won't. So, her ex-boyfriend, right? This guy's a total doucher. Like, fuck this guy.
Major.
So,
he's a walking red flag.
He is. So,
he's an Aries. So, if you're into Zodiac, just look it up.
Respectfully, I don't fucking know what that means. He's Aries.
I'll tell you later.
But respectfully, if that's your thing, do it. You do you. I just don't know what it means.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. So anyway, I have a dark sense of humor. Corey has a dark sense of humor. My significant other, we can fuck with him and he doesn't care. I mean, the amount of jokes we make, we roast him on the daily. Like, both of us roast him and he's fine with it. Like, sometimes he'll give it back. Sometimes, like, he just doesn't get butthurt.
Right.
And, like, upset about it. So... I don't know if y'all remember the really big internet meme a couple years ago. It was like the simp, like, you know, simps, the guys who simp over girls, right? The guys,
right.
The quote nice guys of the internet. We now refer to them as incels. But simps basically are the ones who, like, they're the nice guys. They like buy girls dinner. They'll like donate to girls.
They take care of them. They do nice things, stuff like that.
But they're also incels. They also have major incel energy. So it was a total
You should
joke.
explain what an incel is for the people that don't know.
Okay, incel, the best way that I can describe it is like they're a simp at first, right? Mm-hmm. They buy maybe, like, let's say a girl on the internet who's a Twitch streamer, right? They would donate to her stream, call her beautiful. And when she says, I have a boyfriend, the incel part of them comes out because they start saying, like, F you, you're ugly anyways.
Right.
Like that.
I wasn't even interested.
Yes, that's like a simp, and then the incel part.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's just, yeah. So it's a big meme. And he was like commenting nice shit on her Facebook. And I was like, Corey, I asked her first.
I didn't think he would get mad.
I asked permission. I was like, hey, can I call him a simp really quick? And she was like, yeah, he'll get it. It's funny.
Yeah.
Big internet meme. Like, everybody's calling. Like, I call my boyfriend a simp all the time.
He did not get it.
He didn't fucking get it. So
he was mad.
He was pissed. So I commented on Facebook. I replied to his comment. I said, what a simp. Haha, just kidding. Corey, you deserve this. Like, it was just something super nice.
I don't even remember what it was about.
That's all I said.
Yeah.
And this guy...
I don't remember the post, though. I don't know what it was about.
I think I just went back and found a post that he said something nice on and replied to it. And this guy got so pissed at me.
So pissed.
For calling him a simp. Like, how dare you call me that? Are you calling me a bitch? I mean, now I am.
Yeah.
He got so mad. And I'm like messaging him. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm messaging Corey. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm not invited to the wedding now. Like, I'm fucked. Like,
don't worry, there's no wedding.
He's going. Like, it's so, yeah. That was my first impression of him.
It was not good.
Not good.
I literally, because, I mean, him and I have always had, like, a very sarcastic, dark humor relationship. Right. So, a lot like, you know, me and Dani, that's how our friendship is.
Same with my significant other and I.
Yeah.
Very much. We're so sarcastic to each other.
Yeah, like, so I didn't think it would be a problem, and it was.
It was a huge problem.
Yeah, he was pissed, and then he got pissed at me.
He did. That's right. You sent me screenshots, and he, like... Yeah. He, like, stopped talking to you for, like, a hot minute.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't even do anything.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, and so don't date toxic people.
Yeah, this, ladies and gentlemen,
unfortunately,
why he's gone. And if they can't handle your sense of humor, get rid of them.
Boy, bye.
Bye. Like 3 times. Fucking bye.
Bye.
Okay, sorry about that huge tangent. But we're going back into the cult today. And so if you haven't listened to part 1, you got to go listen to it. It makes more sense if you've heard part 1.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I got sucked into a cult. And this cult was called, it's an organization called Worldwide Dream Builders. They are a training mentorship organization that utilizes the distribution company called Amway. Just for a disclaimer, these are my personal experiences. The names of these leaders have been changed. I'm not trying to get sued. I'm just trying to expose my story and my experiences with this organization. Right? And this has, I have no beef with Amway, the distribution company. I think that they have fantastic products. I am not into MLMs. Don't come at me with your Sensi or whatever MLM crap. If I have to recruit people, I don't want to do with it.
Right.
Nothing. Okay. So with that being said, my first year in the cult was great. Okay, and worldwide, they made you feel like you were family. And I was living on top of the world.
You were on a real high.
I was on a high. It was the second year is when things really changed. That's when I started to really see kind of what was going on, but I wasn't really, I don't know, I wasn't there yet, you know?
Right.
You know, like we talked about this in our relationship with Kyle. You know, we stayed and we stayed. We started to see things that were wrong, but it was not our time to leave yet.
Right.
Like, you could not have talked us out of that relationship fast enough, right?
Yeah.
So I stayed. I stayed around. And a lot of it was because of the manipulation that would happen within these groups and these meetings. If you listen to part 1, you talk about you listen and you hear us talk about how I was not allowed to say certain things to certain people. Like, it got to the point where we had to be really careful what kind of jokes we made to our cross-line friends. As a quick reminder, cross-line. So you have your up-line. That's your leadership. You have your downline. That's people that you sponsor into the business. And then anybody else is considered your crossline. And the cardinal rules basically said you can't talk to these people like about pretty much their personal lives. You couldn't go. Like, we would have these big major functions. And sometimes the crossline, we would all go together to go get some food. They started discouraging that because they're like, but it might not be in your budget, so you shouldn't go. But you'd be like starving and you have the extra money, but your upline says it's not in your specific budget, so you can't go.
Wow.
Or they would say you can't talk about alcohol because somebody might be a raging alcoholic and they've, quote, spent all this time helping them that they might get triggered and drink again or something, and you've wasted all that progress that they've done, right?
Sounds like a them problem.
Oh, 100%. That's not a me problem. That's a fucking them problem. That's a self-control problem.
Right.
Right?
I'm not the one giving you the drink and putting it down your throat.
Oh, exactly. And then they would say, don't recommend certain movies because that person might have just worked themselves out of with their upline and their counsel, their, quote, mentors. They would have worked with them to get them out of, like, a porn addiction. That was something they heavily talked about, was, like, a porn addiction. And getting men and women in these traditional roles, right? So in these meetings, right? So they're held at houses and churches. The board plan meetings. The board plan is when the leader goes up, has a whiteboard, some whiteboard markers, and draws, either the life story or the business plan, right? And they would hold them in houses or churches so that way they were free. And only the men were the ones sharing these board plans, right? They would teach us, and we go back to the nuts and bolts, right? Those specific trainings for the independent business owners, the IBOs. They would teach us how to be a supportive spouse. Yeah, dude. Like, women would do everything behind the scenes. You're talking do their calendars, do, the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, everything. And they would say, but marriage is 100. Like, they would
clearly not.
No. And they would, like, have us hold up this water bottle with somebody else and be like, if one person's only giving 50%, the water bottle's going to fall. Right? So relationships weren't 50-50. Relationships were 100%. Or what they called 0-100. Like, even if your spouse is giving 0%, you have to give 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was ingrained into me. And I was, like, so convinced I was going to find a significant other who was going to be like this. And you know who was in my mind for this? Kyle. I was like, yeah, Kyle would be so great if he saw this. Kyle would love this.
Right.
It was beginning of 2017. So I'd been in the business for a year, and I've got all this shit ingrained to me with talking to people. I even had a couple of people in my business at this point. And these poor people, I'm so sorry to them because honestly, I can't apologize enough for bringing people into this, but I genuinely at the time thought it was the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
I wanted everybody to be a part of it. I wanted everybody to feel the same way that I felt about it.
Yeah.
I lost friends during this time.
Wow.
Absolutely, I lost friends because they would teach you if they don't come around, they're lazy, they're bad people, you don't want to get around them. One of the biggest pins in the business, he would do these talks and he would say, like, he would talk about your drinking buddies, and he would talk like that, and he would say, snap shit, you're on your snap shit with your drinking buddies, and that's how he talked, dude. Like, he was downgrading all these people. He's like, you got your Seahawks friends, or whatever city he was in, he would say whatever, like, major sports team. He's like, your Seahawks TikTok friends are not successful friends. Your drinking friends are not your successful friends. You need to get around successful people. And like, I get that, you know, iron sharpens iron. I understand that concept.
Right.
But I think it's okay to have regular, ordinary friends.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
it's not a competition.
Never.
Like, you don't have to be better than everybody.
No, and you can be supportive of your friends in whatever journey that they're in. And they truly made us feel like we had to also be pompous and criticize our friends. And I did.
Wow.
I absolutely did. I cut out anybody, and that's what they would teach us to do. Cut out anybody who is not building this business. They would say, my only association are people building this business and family. And they had whole ass families getting into this damn business too.
That's wild.
So I always felt like, man, my mom's not in here, my dad's not in here, like, this sucks. Like, but I would lean into them. They would say, plug into mentorship, is what they would say. So around this time, it's, you know, early 2017, and I'm still talking to people. I'm trying to get everybody in my business so I can, you know, get to that first level of leadership. And I talked to this couple, this one lady. She was going to babysit my son. So I had met her over like a babysitting app.
Oh yeah.
And we had sat on the phone, and I was talking to her, you know, and ultimately the conversation led to the business, you know, dropping the message, the mentorship and connecting with other people. And ultimately she would not end up babysitting my son. I'd find somebody else, and she would, and her boyfriend would come and be a part of my business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're going to call her Shayna. So we had Shayna and her boyfriend. We're going to call him Travis. So you had Shayna and Travis. So Shayna was a crazy bitch.
Yikes.
Okay. I learned this throughout the time that I got to know her because she was so much drama.
Ew. I
mean, everything to her was drama, and she was just not somebody, like, at first she was fantastic. I think she had something in her past had made her that way, and she had some abuse happen, which I completely relate to, obviously, and I was fucked up too.
Right.
But she was on a whole different level.
Wow.
And so her boyfriend, Travis, like, he was the nicest guy. And I would bring them around, and Shayna was constantly breaking rules. She wasn't coming dressed up in business attire. She would start cross-lining with other people. I remember we took them to this major event. And this major event called Spring Leadership is in Spokane, Washington. And I remember the whole thing was a shit show because I had to, like, it was my job as their leader to book this trip. So my oldest sister, she lived in Pasco. So she would watch my son. So we would have to ride up there with my son in the car with us. And the car that I had was not big enough to store all of our stuff. And that wasn't my fault because online it looked bigger than it was. And they gave us the wrong car.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And then with that,
Did you, like, rent a car?
Yeah, we had to rent a car. And we had to rent it with, they would tell us don't have credit cards. But you have to have a credit card to rent a car.
Right, yeah.
And you needed to rent a car for this trip. And it happened every year where we had to go to this Spring Leadership. And we had to stay in this 5-star hotel. They would, like, book out these 5-star hotels with us, like, really expensive, but they'd throw like 4 girls to a room, or 4 guys to a room. Couples had to get their own rooms, which ended up being so much money.
Yeah, I bet.
So I was a single, so I would just go with all the other girls and I would room with them, and really we wouldn't even be in the rooms too long because, as you learned from the first,
you don't ever sleep, so
not at all.
Why did you even need a room?
Exactly. So we were at this major function, and I already fucked up with the car. And what had happened also that was really toxic was the lady who did end up putting it in her name. She was one of my downlines. She was the sweetest lady. And to her, I'm so sorry that I ever got you involved. She put it on her credit card, and she wanted to pay for the extra insurance, but it would add the cost for everybody. Like, we all had to split the cost for this car in order to afford it. Right. And gas and everything. Yeah. And our upline was like, I never get the insurance. And she just kept saying, like, I really want to get the insurance. And everybody was like, no, we can't afford that. Especially Shayna.
Fucking Shayna.
Oh, God. So we're at this major function, right? And she ruined it for me. Dear God, she was just the worst. And so she was sitting next to somebody from a whole different line of sponsorship from who even knows where. And she's getting his phone number at the same event that she told my upline that I was getting too close to her boyfriend and hitting on him. I was not. So during this time, I'm with Kyle. None of my downline knew. My upline knew.
Right.
My downline did not know I was rekindling my relationship with Kyle at this point.
Wow.
I was not interested in Travis. Travis is a super nice guy. I would never. I had been in this business for over a year. I know that you don't mess with somebody's significant other. I would fucking never.
Right.
Okay. And it was because we were in like a auditorium style seating, and I had to scooch past to go to the bathroom, and I laughed.
That's because you.
And I said, "Hey," on my way out. And that was me flirting with her.
How dare you say hey?
Oh my God. And I kept telling my upline, I was like, this woman won't stop cross-lining. She's not being professional at these meetings. I want her out.
Right.
They said no. It was me. I was the problem.
What the fuck?
So hear me out. I'm not trying to play the victim by any means. I can admit when I'm wrong. But they gaslit the fuck out of me in this situation.
Wow.
I was so angry. I came back and I almost quit. I told him I was taking a step back because Shayna, so what had happened on the way up there, at this time I was so paranoid with my kid, I always had him in the middle of the seat. Every time, like, because he was little. I mean, I know now that it's okay to have my son in like the other side of the seat, and I've changed that, but I was a first-time mom. Even in our personal car, I had his car seat in the middle.
Right.
And that's where I felt safe. And so I had him in the middle because he had to go up with us. And they started telling me that, like, they're complaining about it. And, like, I told everybody, hey, my son's going to be here. He has to sit in the middle. Like, that's just my comfort level for him. It's a long-ass drive. Like,
right.
And he did great, by the way. Fantastic. He was not by any means, like, whiny or anything.
That's good.
She was whiny.
Oh, my God.
Shayna was the only one who had a problem. She was the bad apple who, like, soured everybody's moods. And
that's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep. And by the way back, she was so disrespectful and rude to me. I don't know why. I don't know what I did to her. I will never know what I did to Shayna. And quite frankly, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Because fuck Shayna.
You, Shayna.
God, yeah. So on our way back, I'm telling my upline everything. I'm calling them at the rest stop. I'm like, I cannot handle her.
Right.
And I want her out of my process. Remember how I told you they'll sign anybody?
Yeah.
That's why I say that. Because they told me from the very beginning, it's your business. You can work with whoever you want to. I didn't have a choice. It's your Platinum's business. They own your business, is what they would tell us.
Wow.
Yep. So John and Barbara would tell Craig and Jenny, who were two other people who had sponsored Robert, they would tell them to take control of the situation. They could handle Shayna and Travis. And Travis never did anything wrong.
Right.
Shout out to Travis, who I've actually talked to recently. Super nice guy. I think he's following his dream of what he really wanted to do now. Super glad he's doing well. So ultimately, him and Shayna would break up. Because Shayna was just too fucking much, man, I swear. I mean, I don't know the whole story, but she was a lot. Yikes. She's the reason I almost quit. And then I would keep hearing back from Jess, because we, like, secretly kept communication at this point. And I would hear back from her, and she'd be like, yeah, Shayna did it again. And then eventually they did have to tell Shayna to stop coming around because she wasn't being professional.
Wow.
Yep. So,
but they'll never admit that you were right.
Oh, they never did.
No,
they never did. They just said, well, Craig and Jenny kind of did. Craig was really supportive. Like, Craig was like a big brother to me. In fact, side note about Craig, he had sold me a cell phone a month or two before Robert had dropped the message with me and got me in the business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Craig chickened out on talking to me about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's funny how I still ended up being around Craig and
That's
his
funny.
wife, Jenny.
Yeah.
So Craig and Jenny had really started to take over me because Barbara and John were growing and, quote, they were too busy for me. So they were like, yeah, you know, we almost lost you because of her. I was like, you did. Like, I told you so.
Right.
But they were hell-bent on getting as many people in this business as they could.
Yeah.
So one thing I did forget is during this car ride back from Spokane, everybody we had calculated out beforehand how much this was going to cost. We gave everybody the amount for the car, and then we would calculate gas on the way back. And when we were done, we were all not supposed to get out of the car until everybody had paid. And Shayna was like throwing a fit about how she didn't think it was supposed to be this expensive and she wasn't going to pay. Yep.
I think the fuck not, bitch.
Yeah. She did end up paying, though.
But still, she had to throw a fit about it.
She sure as fuck did, dude. She really, really, like, I just hated her. but they, like I said, they needed the money.
Right.
They wanted her money.
Wow.
So yeah, so I took a step back, and at this point I'm heavily involved in my relationship with Kyle again. We're talking on the phone every day. I'm telling him, you know, I took a step back from this opportunity that I was a part of, and I don't know if I'm going to go back, and he was really encouraging me to go back.
What were his thoughts on this whole thing?
You know what he told me, and I think it's because I had talked about it beforehand, but they really encourage us not to say the words Amway or Worldwide, because people will go and Google it,
right,
and they'll find everything online about it,
right.
And so I tried my best not to use those words with him, because I didn't want him to know, because they would say it's a process and he doesn't need that information, whatever. But I think I had slipped at one point, and then he told me that he was talking to one of his cellmates about it, and that they had been a part of the same thing, and told him what it was.
No way.
Yeah, he did. I don't believe it for a fucking second, but I mean, maybe.
Right.
I mean, so many people get exposed to this on a yearly basis. It could have happened.
That's wild. If it's like true, like that's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
But I feel like, you know, Kyle, he likes to manipulate his surroundings and himself. So
yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, but he said he was like all about it. He was starting to read John Maxwell books in prison. John Maxwell is an author that they approved of that we could read. In fact, Spring Leadership, shout out. We got to see John Maxwell. I will still to this day not regret going to that, because that's actually something that employers have found like really valuable in me, and that's something for my career path I take away. I'm like, I still really value him as an author.
Yeah.
But started reading those types of books, and Kyle was like really getting interested in this. Like, it was the plan that he was going to sit down with Jenny and Craig when he got out.
Oh wow.
It's because Jenny and Craig knew that I was talking to him, and they would even ask about like, how's Kyle doing? Are you guys still communicating? Like, are you planning on going to like get him when he gets out? Like, like we all need to sit down once he gets home. Like, we were dreaming up my life with Kyle in our counsel sessions.
That's wild.
Yep.
Did they know what he went to prison for?
Yep. I told them everything. They would tell us to live in a glass house. Be transparent about 100% everything. I told them everything.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if you remember, we'll go back to that. Never mind. I don't want to preemptively go to that. But anyways, so I'm in this business.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. So anyways, after this happened with Shayna, after Shayna got kicked out, basically I went back, and it was around this time that I went to one of these regional rallies, right? Remember, it's training in the beginning, and it's a board plan, right, at night. We had this group chat with our upline and our specific line of sponsorship. It was my leaders, and in this group chat, they told my my pals, my leaders, right? They're like, hey, keep Dani away from this area. Oh, Turns out Luke was there with another person. Somebody brought him to this meeting who was in a totally different line
of remember, Luke is her ex-boyfriend.
Luke is my ex-boyfriend who I had gone through the process with me, was going to launch, and then we broke up. And that's when you had said maybe he saw the red flags.
Right.
No,
he did not, apparently.
He did not. He was there with somebody else.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, it's funny because when we had started going through this, he had found out that some girl he was friends with on Facebook was doing it. I'm guessing he hit her up after we broke up.
Probably.
And eventually he ended up going to these meetings with her. I might be like mixed up as far as timeline goes, but this definitely happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? Later on in the process of being in this business, they would have a like social media site to help connect people, and it was like engineered like through Facebook. It was like a workplace type thing,
right?
And you could like search people on there, and I never saw Luke on there. So I think either he never launched his business, or he launched and then quit. Which, respectfully, good for you. I'm glad you got out. Yeah, I'm super glad that you got out, because I did too. But I would definitely like look him up all the time just to see if he was like still around, or like, am I gonna run into him? See what
he's doing.
Like, am I gonna run into him at these functions?
Right.
And we would also, through this process, we would see people that we would bring to meetings, and you'd see them there with somebody else. This was not uncommon. It just sucked that it was my ex-boyfriend.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So after everything happens with Shayna, I'm like getting back into this business again actively, and I start pushing forward again, and I start talking to new people. And at this point, her ex-boyfriend, Travis, had joined the business. This guy was awesome. Like, he's great. Like I said, I talked to him recently. He's one of the nicest people. And again, so sorry. So now we're going to fast forward. Like, the rest of this year, I got back into the business, and everything was back to normal, right? I'm back in there. I'm attending these meetings. I am getting filled with all of this brainwashing information. By this point, I don't even have, like, friends outside of the business anymore.
Wow.
Not at all. So it's 2018 now, and we all know what happened in March of 2018. Kyle was released from prison. Yep. So
unfortunately.
Yep. So I would end up being in this relationship with Kyle while I was going to these meetings. Nobody knew what was going on except for Jenny and Craig.
Wow.
Yep. No one knew what was going on. Well, it was Craig, Jenny, and then John and Barbara knew what was going on too. But I don't think they were as in the loop because I didn't meet with them anymore.
Right.
Like, who you met with changed based on their leadership levels and if they're growing or not growing. And Jenny and Craig had happened to drop out of their qualification many times.
Oh, wow.
Which happens because you're working in a people business and people start to realize that these are huge red flags.
Yeah.
So people were dropping out left and right, and they're trying their best to keep new people in. But those were who I was really meeting with. And by this time, Robert and Jess had actually gotten married.
Yeek.
Yeah. So I'm going through this with Kyle. And it was around this time that's when, you know, everything with Kendra was happening, with Lulu, which I didn't know about Lulu at this point. But all of that's going on in the back end.
That's a lot to deal with.
It was a lot.
Plus deal with all this shit, too.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be in this business, and I'm still talking to people. And it was when I started working from home that I started looking for other avenues of, you know, income. I was trying to look for other jobs because I was doing, like, Postmates and stuff to try to make extra money.
Yeah.
And I remember I, like, went to this ad, and it was a sales job, and I was already doing sales, and it was for an SEO guy who creates SEOs and it's just an online web design guy. And I started trying to work from him. It did not work out. I was not in the mental space to do that. Eventually he just kind of ghosted me because I just kept not doing anything. Right. Because it was just hard. Like, I was dealing with Kyle.
Yeah, you had a lot going on.
This business, and it was just so much going on. But through this time, he tried to get me into a different cult.
Wow. People really like you for their cults.
I guess I'm just approachable. Right.
Yeah.
Just Corey has
because you're nice and you talk to people.
Because you have a fantastic RBF.
I do.
I don't have that.
I always look like don't talk to me.
I'm approachable, and at that time I was taught to be approachable.
Right.
So I go to this like seminar thing just because I wanted my employer to like me.
Yeah.
It was a cult. It was these people going through this quote program, and they were giving their testimonials about this quote program, and it cost a shit ton of money, more than what our cult was.
Wow.
And they would preach in the cult that you're only spending, you know, your overhead. You don't count your business, your products as a business expense. I was spending so much money, and at the end, I'm going to talk about how much money I did end up losing.
A lot.
Right. But at this business, I met a guy who did the program, and I told him about Worldwide, but I dropped the message with him. I was like, hey, you seem to really like this kind of mentorship stuff. What if I introduce you to some new people who might be able to help you in a different way?
Right.
Boom. He was sucked in, like, he was about it.
Dang.
He was a super nice guy, too. I'm not saying that, like, he's gullible or anything. I mean, people have different motivations. I mean, I was in the same business, right?
Right.
I just felt like the other thing was a cult, and our business would talk about that. They would say anything else is a cult except for this.
I beg to differ.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So I brought him around, and he would end up getting sponsored into business. So I, at this point, have like 3 business members. I'm talking to other people. I am going places.
Right.
Okay. At least I think
you're doing the damn thing.
I was. And then it was the middle of June when I found out that Kyle was cheating on me. Kyle had texted Jenny and told her that he cheated on me. So like I said, we have these counseling sessions like once or twice a month that we're supposed to go sit down with our mentors, right? And we are to sit down with them, talk about business, like your goals with life and everything.
Right.
I remember sitting down at this Starbucks, and I talked about it before, and I'll say it again. Looking at her face, something was wrong. And it was a couple minutes into our meeting that she's asking me, so how are things going with Kyle? I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I haven't talked to him. And then she's like,
oh, God.
Yeah, my heart sank. I knew something bad was coming. And that's when she told me that Kyle told her that he cheated on me. And this woman...
How did Kyle get her number?
I gave it to him.
Okay.
Because he was supposed to talk to Craig and Jenny. Remember, he's supposed to be getting her on this business.
Yes.
And so I gave him their information, especially since we weren't going to be allowed to talk. I was like, hey, if you need to reach out to somebody and you have questions, just need to talk, reach out to Craig.
Right.
And so he texted Jenny and just laid everything out. Jenny has been in this cult longer than me. And she, I think the same way I was ingrained to be traditional and values and husband and wife and forgiveness and all that shit. Mm-hmm. She told me to forgive him.
Fuck that.
Because he's so manipulative, and she's so obviously easily manipulated because she's in this cult.
Right.
At the time I was too.
And I'm sure he was like, I'll never do it again. Blah, blah, blah. All the bullshit that he lies.
Exactly. And he spun it in some way that he made her think that he just had this problem and he was trying to fix it and it was an accident. And yeah, how the fuck do you do that by accident?
You don't.
You don't. I don't know what he said. But anyway, so she did, though. Like, your best friend comes to you, right? I come to you. My boyfriend tells you that he cheated on me. What do you say?
Fuck no. You
Leave
get
him.
out of here.
Leave him.
Yeah.
I would curse him out. And
bye.
Yeah. She knew this information for a whole fucking month and didn't tell me anything.
A month?
A month.
Wow.
Yep. A whole month. She knew this was going on and waited to tell me. She's like, I didn't know how to tell you. But, like, she said everything else. I was like, I don't know.
Just the fact that she waited so long to tell you is, like, major red flag. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if she just found out, like, the night before or something, but she's held on to this for a whole fucking month.
Yeah. And she watched me go to Klamath Falls and back. A 6-hour drive.
Right.
One way.
And put all this effort into the relationship.
Yep. She watched me do it all, and I felt so betrayed.
Yeah.
But at the time, I blamed my betrayal on just Kyle, and it was absolutely Jenny. Jenny is a huge part of why I went back to Kyle after that. I would end up going and getting pregnant and being with him, you know, under the radar anyways.
Right.
But that, looking back as far as that part goes, it's very devastating.
Yeah.
That she encouraged me. She knew how abusive he was. And I would tell her about his abuse. I would tell her that he, like, pushed me. And she would just say, well, you know, and I'd be like, I don't know what to say. Like, as a person, you fucking tell your friend. Like, it's such a touchy subject, and I understand that it's so difficult, but you encourage your friend to leave.
Right.
You do.
But that's not okay.
Right. And they never encouraged me to leave him.
Wow.
Never.
Which is so funny because they, like, come off as such traditional people and in marriages and stuff, and like, I'm sorry, but normal marriages and being traditional, you don't cheat,
right?
Like, that's not okay. Why would you encourage somebody else in a relationship to forgive somebody?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not ugh.
Well, I think it's because we had this quote, what they called the pastor of this organization. I'm not going to say his name, but basically, if couples were having issues like infidelity, they would go to his place and be like
cured?
counseled, and I don't want to say cured, but they'd definitely be like, they come together as a couple and come out stronger, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and they had actually seen another couple go through that. So I would learn later on through this time, as I'm, you know, listening to her, staying with Kyle, you learn about the divorces. They always say, well, it's only a 4% divorce rate, which is bullshit. There are so many leaders.
Yeah, there has to be more.
There were so many leaders who were getting divorced. Left and right, people were splitting up. I mean, this organization was tearing families apart.
That's sick.
They would tell you that, oh, it's bringing people together. It's not. It's tearing people apart. Like,
wow.
The relationships that I saw end, including my own, because of that organization.
Right.
Terrible. Especially when you go back on their audios, they'd have really old ones where one would have a spouse and then the newer person would have like a different last name, same person, or they'd have like no spouse anymore.
Oh, wow.
Or they would rip the audios off of there if the divorce was like recent. Yeah.
Wow.
There was this one lady she was like the one who like inspired me the most at my very first function. She was a single mom, worked 3 jobs, and then like she ended up marrying her upline. And they were only together. I only saw her speak at one function, and then he kind of disappeared, and we never saw her, and they were divorced.
Wow.
Because he came back as a single, and then she actually later came back in the business sponsored by somebody else.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
that's wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of divorce, a lot of splitting up. And then things just started to, like, not make sense anymore.
Right.
Like, you'd start to question everything that you're being told. They would tell you one thing, right? They would tell us to watch our budget, but then they would ask us for donations, for gifts for these people. Like if you have it in your budget. If it's not in your budget, don't do it. But we would love to put, we would love for you to donate your money to this gift to somebody who's supposedly a millionaire.
You're like, how about they donate to me?
I'm broke, dude. I'm making I was by the end, or when I was still with Kyle, I was working my part-time job and I was doing Postmates. I was doing what I had to do to survive.
Right.
And I wasn't paying for childcare anymore because I was working from home. I was homeschooling. I'm still with Kyle. I'm still in this cult. It was a fucking mess.
Wow.
And then I found out I was pregnant.
Shit.
And the thing is I couldn't ever tell anybody my story. How did I get pregnant? Obviously, I did something to get pregnant. I had a significant other. I was with somebody was there.
Right. You don't just get pregnant by accident.
No, as you said before.
Yeah. It takes two.
It takes two, and it's never an accident. So I was pregnant, and nobody could ask questions. They weren't allowed to ask me. You couldn't ask your upline specific questions because that would de-edify them. Wow. You weren't allowed to embarrass your upline. That was another cardinal rule. Don't embarrass them. So you had to, again, we had to be really careful with what we said. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't just tell people, yeah, I have a boyfriend. I couldn't tell him because he wasn't coming to these meetings.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I had this
so
whole
fucked.
secret life that my upline knew was going on and my downline had no idea.
That's
and
wild.
These people were supposed to be my best friends.
Right.
So I'm going through my pregnancy, and there was another girl that was pregnant as well. She was a single girl by herself pregnant, and nobody knew her story either. And I kind of wish I did.
Right.
Because I think it would help a lot of people. And they tell you that you can't share that story until you're a person of leadership, until you're an eagle or above.
Right.
Right. You tell a micro story, but you're not going to tell them about your abuse until you've made it to that pin level because you can't be trusted to say anything else.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when Kyle and I had finally split up, I was kind of towards the tail end of my time in this cult because I was so pregnant and I was really emotional. And things, like I said, they just stopped making sense the way that they were.
Yeah.
I was hearing
you were starting to see the red flags and stuff more.
I was being fed things that were just so hypocritical. So for example, these leaders, if you follow them on Instagram and their stories, you'll see that they have products that are not their products. That they're showcasing, that they're using. It's like they told us to live and breathe these products, but these upper people, they're not using them. And maybe they have them in their house. Maybe they're using some of them, but they are definitely out there. Why is that okay?
Right.
Why do they get
But you have to spend all your money on only their products.
Yes. And if I drink another electrolyte drink, I felt guilty if I didn't drink that business electrolyte drink. And these people are advertising, they're showing whatever electrolyte drinks. I saw one recently because I still follow one person on Instagram.
Yeah.
And she's a pretty high up pin level. She's actually Taylor's wife.
Oh.
But I always see her posting these things. I'm like, that's not a product.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're always are showing themselves going and getting what I assume was Botox and just all of this crazy stuff. And they would tell you if you made the money to buy let's say you in your regular job made enough money to buy a Louis Vuitton bag.
Right.
They would tell you, don't buy that bag because your downline can't afford it and they'll duplicate you. Even if you in your regular job could afford a Louis Vuitton bag, they would tell you that stuff. And they'd say, but that's because that's what I would do. I couldn't buy my wife that bag until we were at this pin level. And there are still things I won't buy because I don't make, because you don't make that much money. It's but you're showcasing all this shit to us.
Right.
Which one is it?
Right.
Am I motivated by your damn watch or am I not?
Right. What do you want me to be?
Exactly.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah, and they would tell you not to buy a house, but they were buying houses. They would tell you to rent houses. Don't buy a house. It's a waste of your time.
So hypocritical.
It's so hypocritical.
Wow.
Yep. So Kyle and I obviously ended up splitting at the end of 2018. And by this time, I'm kind of taking a break from the cult, kind of not. When I was pregnant with my baby, I had a baby shower. My sister-in-law is amazing. She set it up. And my upline came, Jess and Jenny. I have a picture of us, actually, that we'll post on Instagram with Jess, me, and Jenny.
Oh, wow.
And Jenny was the person that I'd go to for everything. I swear to you, she was my best friend. Jenny was in the room with me, and I chose her over my roommate, who I have known for well over 10 years.
Wow.
And I regret that to this day, because my roommate is my old roommate. She was an incredible person, and to this day I just value her so much.
Right.
She's like just amazing, and I regret not letting her be in there.
Yeah.
And Jenny was in there, and after my son was born, I literally popped him out and she left, and she did not come back to the hospital. My roommate at the time had stayed with me the entire time until she had to go home, and because she took me to the hospital, she gave me a ride to the hospital. She stayed with me. She was one of the first people to change his diaper.
Wow.
Yeah, he peed on himself, and she thought it was the funniest thing. And
it is quite hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I did have, like, my upline came and visited me at the hospital. Barbara and John came to visit me. Jess and Robert came to visit me. And they would end up leaving. But who was there for me, like, the whole time? It was my roommate at the time.
Right.
And it was my dad.
Yeah.
My dad came. My dad brought me food. My dad came the day that he was born. My dad came the next day. And then my dad came and picked me up. And he lived. My son was born in Oregon City, which I don't mind saying that because I don't live there anymore.
Right.
But my dad lived in, like, Molalla at the time.
Yeah.
Which was a 30-minute drive. Maybe that's over-exaggeration, but it's a drive,
right.
you know?
It's not just down the street.
He came every day.
Wow.
Every day.
So parents, they're the best.
Yeah, and these are the people who would tell me that my parents didn't know shit because they still worked a job.
Right. Yet they're the ones that couldn't take the time out of their day to stay with you more than
a couple
of hours that you were there to have him, basically.
Yep. So at this point, when I had finally, like, had my baby and I ended things with Kyle, their whole thing, they said, oh, we're so excited that we're closing this Kyle storybook. Now we can start a different chapter, a different book just for you. I would tell them about the abuse, dude. I'm sitting there on their couch in their home telling them about this abuse. And they never once thought to tell me, like, you need to call the police. Never.
Wow.
Nope. They would tell us that there are mentors and that we needed to go to them for everything. But then when we had problems, they would say, we're not professional counselors. What?
Well, then why the fuck are we talking?
Exactly. So towards the very end, I'm still maybe taking people through this process. And at this time, I actually had this couple that was a part of this process. And dude, let me fucking tell you. Remember how we talked about how Shayna was allowed to stay around forever?
Uh-huh.
All right. So people are typically in the process for 3 months. Maximum 6 if they're having an issue with their budget. Like, that's usually the reason why people don't launch, is because they can't afford it.
Right.
So you keep bringing them around and you keep them there in hopes that they're gonna launch their business one day.
Right.
So while I was still pregnant, I forgot to mention this couple, but dear God, this couple is what did me in. Oh God. So this couple, I'm not gonna say their names. It was a husband and wife. And I met the wife one night a year prior.
Oh, wow.
To when I was, she was a security guard, and I was just getting done with a meeting at the hotel that she was being a security guard at. And she came over to my door and she had asked, she's like, hey, it's kind of suspicious. Is everything okay? I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I just got done with, I was meeting some people here. And then ultimately I dropped the message, got her phone number. Right.
Right.
And I would keep in contact with her for a while, and then she would just drop off. She actually ended up, sending me a text message when I was in Medford for one of the rallies that we were encouraged to go to.
Right.
We were encouraged to go. They would tell us, if you're not driving the miles, you're not in. You're not all in. And this couple, so she messaged me, and when we got back from Medford, we set up a time and we finally sat down with her. Dude, when I tell you, I don't judge people for their differences, but this woman was strange. So when we first sat down, her demeanor was very, like, stoic. And she told Craig that she could see strings coming out of his head.
What the fuck?
And me too. She's like, I can see your guys' strings. She said, yours are black. You're having an issue in your relationship. And you, Craig, you and your wife, did you have a fight?
What the fuck?
Out of fucking nowhere, dude. Left field. It was so weird. Yeah. And Craig's just like, that was, like, Craig and I, like, we were talking mad shit after this.
Yeah,
like,
I would
mad shit.
too.
We're like, what the fuck? Just like, what
just happened?
What was going on? And he's like,
that's kind of weird though, because, like, yours was true,
It was weird. It was so weird. But she would just always try to read us. And it was very uncomfortable because I didn't want to be fucking read.
No.
Read me.
Right.
I don't believe in that kind of shit.
Yeah.
You can't just...
Like, why do I have strings? What does strings mean?
Right. If there are people who believe in that, no shame to you guys. I have no, like... I just personally, I just don't see it.
Right.
Like, being, like, I don't know. I just don't believe that she could read everything about me.
Yeah, it's weird.
And, I was very obviously pregnant, and she's like, you're giving off a very spicy energy. You're going to have a spicy baby. She was right. I have a spicy little shit for sure. And then she would just say things that weren't real. Like, there was something that she had predicted about Craig. I don't remember what it was, but it was bullshit. Like,
right.
He was like, nah, that's not real. Like, no.
He's like, no freak.
Well, actually, it was when she had said that him and his wife had a fight. And he, like, went along with it when he was talking to him. But he's like, no, we're fine.
Right.
So... But anyways, we kept them in this process. I don't know why, but it just it got weirder and weirder. We met her husband, and he was a nice enough guy.
Mm-hmm. Was he as weird?
No, she was definitely the weirdest.
Okay.
But he put up with her. You could tell he was very much like a yes man kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
So anything that she said,
right,
he did, which is fine. You know, you respect your wife. Your relationship is yours. I don't care.
Right.
And he would continue on. Like, they would come to the meetings. He would dress professionally. She wouldn't. I brought her to another meeting. I told her, please dress professionally. This time she didn't. Yeah. She would never listen.
Either listen or get out.
Yeah. And she wasn't, like gossipy like Shayna was. Mm-hmm. But I remember bringing her around, and somebody asked a question. And remember, only eagles and above are allowed to answer questions.
Right.
She started answering the freaking question. It was embarrassing. I was like, oh my God. And then I had to do
damage control.
I had to damage control that situation real quick. And I had to apologize so much to the person who brought her around. I was like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
That's not okay. I've talked to her about this.
Right.
And oh God, it was so embarrassing.
Wow.
Yeah. It was.
You're like, please shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, please shut the fuck up. And ultimately, through this time, it just I never clicked with them. I didn't want them at my house, and I kept.
I don't blame you.
They were in my process, dude. From we're talking well over 6 months. Anyways, so oh God, it was just the worst. I didn't want them around. I kept telling Jenny, and Jenny was trying to encourage Craig, hey, let's get them out of the process because you're supposed to be able to choose.
Right. And it's your business.
And again, for the second time, he's dragging this on. And even Barbara was like, no, they need to be gone. They should have been cut a long time ago. She agreed with me at this point.
Yeah.
And so finally we sat down with this woman because her husband was working.
Sorry, bitch, you're too fucking weird. Get out.
Well, yeah, we met her at a Sherry's, and I printed out this thing, and I said, hey, unfortunately the things with this process are not working or something like that.
Right.
And I was like, try back in 6 months.
Try back never.
Yeah. So.
Wow. How did she take it?
She cried, which I understand because I don't know. I don't know her perspective, and I never will. And do I feel bad? Yes. But I didn't want her around.
I mean, if she's not going to follow any of the rules, then why is she even there?
Exactly. I just didn't vibe with her. They're talking about these people are your best friends. Da, da, da. I didn't vibe.
You're
with her.
she ain't my bestie.
No. So that couple would end up being the last couple that I took through the process. But speaking of the process and taking people through it, there was this other couple that I forgot to mention with, I think it was my first year or around heading into my second year of business. We had an event again. And the wife was pregnant. It was a husband and wife. The wife was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
She was so pregnant. She was going to give birth the day of the function.
Oh, wow.
But they still heavily encouraged this couple to spend their money on tickets. And they bought them.
Wow.
And they were told, yeah, we'll get you a refund. The business never gave them a refund.
Wow. That's shitty.
Yeah. She was so pregnant. There's no way she would have been no, when you're that close to your due date, you don't know. And they were basically making them feel if you don't go, you can't be around. Yeah.
That's so shitty.
I know. I feel so bad. I'm so glad that couple nothing ever happened with them after they had their baby. And honestly, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
I hope that they're doing really well. But that just goes into the level of manipulation that they had. They had such a hold.
Yeah, they
on
really did.
Everything. And, you know, just little things that they did to continue that manipulation. Again, we're going to talk about these incentives. They had this one incentive where they upped the PV amount for women. And it was specifically for women. And they said everybody going, even singles, they have to do 300 PV. Dude, that was $1,000.
Holy shit.
$1,000. They would make you feel bad if you didn't go to these incentives.
Like,
too.
again, where do they expect you to pull this money out of?
They expect you to keep a savings or whatever, like budget in. Like, they expect you to have 2 jobs and do Postmates on the side.
Fuck that.
Right.
Fuck them.
And I was doing that. By the end, I had 3 jobs and I was doing Postmates on the side.
That's crazy.
I had 3 work from home. I had 2 work from home jobs, 1 weekend caregiving job, and I would do Postmates.
Wow.
It was a lot, dude. And all that money was going to this business. And I still could not afford these tickets, dude. And they made us feel so guilty. Like, if you didn't make it to this event, they would have these things. So every day we would have to send what they said, send up a message. They had this app is called Communicate. And they would say, send up a Kate. And they would send them down. They'd pass them down. So every day you'd have to, what they called, clear your Kate box. And so they'd send messages that we were all supposed to listen to. And they would send messages down of like people reflecting on these events that they went to. And it would just like hurt your soul if you didn't get to go.
Wow.
Like they would say, get around the association, do whatever you can to get around the association, do whatever you can to impress your mentors. And they would like post pictures of other people getting to sit down with your mentors. These people they didn't have a leadership level yet. It's like, what did they do to get lunch with this couple?
Right.
I just wanted to hang out with them.
Right.
I didn't want them to pay for anything. I'll pay for it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hang out with them.
Wow.
And I never got the opportunity to. The couple that I'm referring to, they did end up like having that leadership level, and I think they're still in the business today.
Oh, wow.
But I just felt so diminished as a person by the end of this. I tried so hard to impress these people who just, it felt like there was nothing I could do.
Right.
And they would always say, you'll quit us before we quit you. And they would say, it's not about the business. We're best friends. We'll always be best friends no matter what happens. And eventually, it was bullshit, because eventually I stopped buying the products. They stopped talking to me.
Wow.
After I left the business, I had lost one of the jobs that I was doing, which is fine. It was just a second job, wasn't my primary job.
Right.
And I was like sad about it.
Yeah.
I was really depressed after I left this business. And it was not because I was sad to be out of it. It's because I was so traumatized in ways that I didn't understand. Mm-hmm. I had to like rekindle friendships.
All the manipulation that you went through, like, that's a lot.
Yeah. So I would eventually just never hear from them again.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, you're not giving me money anymore, so fuck you, basically.
Exactly. And
you're worthless to them.
Yep. And that's why I have so much regret, as far as like, I wasted 3 years with these people.
And so much money.
So I estimated, and this is probably the low end of what I lost, but in 3 years, so you're spending about $600 a month on just the products. That doesn't include the $150 tickets that you're buying 4 times a year.
And the gas that you're spending on all these meetings.
And the babysitting.
Yeah.
And the little functions in between, the let's donate to this person's gift, to what have you. I lost over $25,000.
Wow.
I had when I first started this, I was debt free and had 10 grand in the bank.
Wow.
I had saved 10 grand. I was debt free. I went through that money so fast because they told me, put it into the business because you're investing in yourself.
Right.
They would tell us, well, the average business, you have to invest so much money and they don't even get a return of investment for so many years. And this is like the fastest way that you can get rich and you're going to be free. They would always say, you're going to be free. You're going to not have a job anymore. And it's like, what?
Right.
Like that business, the amount of time that those leaders spend doing that shit, they're not free. They spend so much time between council sessions. And I mean, if maybe once they get to like the diamond level, which is a pretty high level, maybe they don't do it as much anymore.
Right. But you have to work all the way up there and spend how much up there money just to get up there.
Exactly. And they would always say, once you hit the eagle level, that will pay for your ditto. Like that's how much like you have this business revenue. So, I mean, some people were able to pay for their products with their business.
Right.
But keeping people around was tough.
Yeah.
Because other people did not like this pyramid schemy, sense of things.
Right.
Which it is it's a legal organization, right? They have lawyers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's the way that they do things. I remember when I first started, I don't know if things have changed now. They may have changed. I have not associated with either of these two organizations anymore, and I don't know what's up today.
Right.
But back in 2018, they were still teaching us to buy 150. They teach us to buy a total of 200 PV, right? They would told us to report 50 PV as a customer volume because you had to sell 50 PV of products in order for them to qualify you for that kickback check.
Wow.
So they would tell you to just put in your grandma or put in your mom or just put in any name
just
there.
Just random people.
Yep. So that's how we got that money. And then if you forgot to do that, your money goes to your upline. And there were times that I forgot to do that.
Right.
Because why? Because we're not selling that. They would tell us, you're not stacking it high and selling it cheap. You're not doing all this stuff. You're the customer. You're buying it. You're allowed to do, I don't know. It just felt really shady.
Yeah, that's weird.
So
it's like deceiving.
It is. Yeah. So after leaving, it was really hard to get back to normal life because, I felt guilty for a long time for even just taking a nap.
Right.
Sleeping was very, very difficult for me to feel okay. I was never it was not normal to not be doing something.
Right.
Because for 3 years, I was told if you're taking a nap, you're being lazy, you're not working, you're not all in. You need to be all in.
Yeah.
You need to be talking to X amount of people per day, dropping X amount of messages. You need to be bringing us contacts. You need to be bringing people to these plans. If you don't, you're not dedicated.
Right.
And one of our leaders, I'm not going to say his name, but he was so ruthless. He would just say, if you're and I was struggling financially too. And
well, yeah, I can imagine.
And they were saying, it's because you're going out of budget. You're going out of budget. It's like, no, I was not.
Right.
I was spending all my fucking money on this stupid business.
Right.
And
not getting the money back in return.
Yep. And this guy, he would always say, he was John and Barbara's son.
Oh, great.
He was their leader.
God.
And he was so fucking ruthless, dude. I still cringe whenever I think of him.
Yeah.
And his wife was so sweet, but no, fuck this couple because they screwed so many people over. Anybody in this business really screwed people over.
Wow.
And they would just say he would always say, if you're not doing your 200 PV, you are not all in. You're not all in.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of fucking money.
Average people, who work and stuff, especially as a single person,
yeah,
you don't have $600 just left over every month.
Exactly.
What?
Yep. If you're not bringing X amount of guests to these functions, you're not all in. You're still sitting in the bleachers because once you hit a certain pin level, they let you sit down on the floor. That's special for those people.
Wow.
And they'd say, you're still in the bleachers. Come on, people. And then eventually, his dad, John, would just start, cursing at us in meetings.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He'd be like, you guys need to grow the fuck up and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. Dude, it got ruthless in these.
Wow.
Yeah, in your one-on-ones, you would, these people really degraded you.
Wow.
And they would give you backhanded ass compliments. It was like I was in a room full of Kyles. I'm not surprised I got sucked into something like this because I was with Kyle.
Right.
It was very, very good.
No wonder why he liked it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he never came around.
Right.
He would never end up coming around, but...
He liked the idea of it.
And... I think that's why it's because you go through this honeymoon phase, and then when the honeymoon phase is over, you're in this abusive relationship. And a lot of it was toxic and manipulative and narcissistic. I mean, these people were pompous as hell. I mean, there was this other couple so the line of sponsorship, it's hard because I have to change all the people's names. But so John and Barbara's son, he was sponsored by a couple named Greg and Lisa. And it was tough being a part of this organization as well because you just watched people kind of marry up into it.
Yeah.
And Greg's wife Lisa was one of those people.
Wow.
And I mean, they were always nice to me, but they were always just challenging people to be around because Greg was pompous as fuck. In fact, I think somebody called him pompous and he would always play into that as a joke and be like, I don't even know what pompous means. My teacher always said that I have an IQ of room temperature or something. Because
what the fuck?
Yeah, he was from a different country and he always was talking about the immigration mindset and stuff like that. His speeches got weird sometimes. He'd start talking about parents and sex. It was just uncomfortable.
Ew, what?
Yeah, I don't know why. He's just like, it was like, I think it was the point of like intimacy and like marriage and stuff like that and how that's what they talk about. But he would go really in detail. And I would just remember feeling like uncomfy in my skin.
Yeah, that's weird.
Just so uncomfy. Like, you just sit there and you're just like, God, I fucking hate this. Stop fucking talking.
Yeah.
Stop fucking talking.
Ew.
And there was one time we would go to these, what they called freedom parties, where somebody would, quote, retire from their job. Basically, their business was making enough to where they could quit their jobs. And they would celebrate it like crazy. And they smash an alarm clock with like a sledgehammer.
Oh, wow.
And the sledgehammer had something like engraved on it. And they'd always read it. And it was a big deal. Anyway, so I was at this one event, and it was when my son was born, my new baby was born, and I had my oldest son with me.
Yeah.
My oldest son got separated from me in this
God.
huge sea of people at a park. I knew immediately he was going to be terrified.
Yeah.
Okay. And I found my leaders. Greg and Lisa are my leaders. They had a brand new baby too.
My
and
gosh.
I say, hey, Greg, he's walking up next to me, and he's just pompous as fuck. He doesn't really associate with people who are like below him, basically.
Him, yeah.
So I'm sitting there trying to have a conversation with him, and I'm like, hey, if my son's missing, you know, he's like, he's fine.
Yeah,
He's
but
fine.
what if he's not?
Right, there's all these people, like...
Yeah, he doesn't know anybody.
Yeah,
he's
he
lost. He can't see his mom.
Yep.
Of course, any child's going to be freaking out.
Yep, he didn't help me at all.
Wow.
Yep, he just
Fuck
kept
you,
he just
Craig.
kept on walking. Oh, it was Greg.
Greg, whatever.
Greg, yeah. Honestly, at this point, they're the same person. I mean, so thankfully my son was at the age, he was, I want to say 5 or 6. He was 6. He knew my phone number.
Oh,
and
good.
Thank God somebody in the business, he walked up to them, was crying hysterically, and he gave them my phone number, and the guy called me and was like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I have your son. And then he kind of gave me who his line of sponsorship was. I was like, thank you so much. I'm in the sponsorship, you know, I'll come find you. And I went and found him. Thankfully, we were reunited.
Yeah.
But it was so shitty because my leader wouldn't do anything. Like, you're supposed to help me.
Right.
And be on my, like, no.
We're on the same team, and you just totally, like, acted like it was nothing. The motherfucking child is missing.
Yes. And
wow.
It was tough because the leaders did start to act like that at some point. They would, you know, start to act like cliquey. They would only talk to certain people within their organization, but it's like, I'm in your organization.
Oh, you're not good enough.
Yeah, and I'm directly down from them. This was not cross-lining situation. These were my actual leaders.
Right.
And they were so fucking stuck up and snobby.
Wow.
It was very sad. Because you were taught that these people are like royalty. These people are the people that...
supposed to be good people.
The salt of the fucking earth. You just want their attention so bad. And they don't give it to you. They don't give you the time of fucking day.
They don't give a fuck.
They make you feel if you're not spending the most money and you're not... I mean, the money is what comes down to.
Right. That's all they care about.
And they really encouraged people to get married.
Ew.
Yeah. My friend Jess. So after I left the business, Jess and I actually, we lost touch. And we later reconnected. And... she like had this situation going on with her husband Robert. She like had to escape to my house one night because he was being very abusive.
Ugh.
And I would learn her entire story. I'm not going to go into that, but
her story to tell.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. No. But I would learn what happened to her and how she was going through domestic violence and some very tough things.
Right.
That the cult would ultimately have her cover up. And it's very sad. Because she then learned about my story, which she also had no fucking clue what was going on.
Wow.
And we were told, like, from the beginning, like, you're not allowed to be friends. Even though...
Oh, right, because you guys were, what is it, cross?
Well, because she was... Yeah, so we were considered cross-line because she wasn't even in the business yet. And she wouldn't be in the business until her and Robert would get married.
Got it.
And then once they were married... Our relationship was still very strained. Like, we were not allowed to communicate. For some reason, I don't know why. It was just weird, the rules that they had.
That is weird.
So, yeah. But her, to this day, she's still one of my best friends. I value her so much as a person. I mean, I'm just grateful that I got out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you go through something like that, it might not sound as bad, but when you're going through it and you're looking back and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
You see these people and you know they're still at large.
Yeah.
They're still at large doing the same shit. In fact, I think Taylor and his wife moved to Arizona.
Ew.
And I think some of their other leaders underneath them moved to Arizona as well. So that sucks. And I'm hoping not to run into them. Or, you know, maybe I will. Maybe one day I'll have the opportunity to be like,
what's up, scumbag?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, story. Okay, sorry, I forgot about this. So, since I have been out of this organization, my boyfriend, awesome guy, my boyfriend used to work at a gas station just because he was getting his start in life. He doesn't do that anymore. Don't judge him. Fantastic guy. But back in this time,
he was young. I mean, still is, but
he's not that young. Okay, he's a couple years old. Older. He's a couple years younger than me. Anyways, so he was working at this gas station, and somebody dropped a message with him.
Oh,
Yeah, he got their number because he had told me he knew my story, and he was like, I thought we could fuck with them. I knew the girl who gave it to him.
Oh God.
I remembered her first and last name. I called her. I'm talking to her on the phone. I'm bullshitting with her.
Right.
And then I find out her name. I was like, I said her first and last name. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, I know you. And I wouldn't tell her my name. She kept asking. I wouldn't tell her.
Right.
And I was like, you're in Greg and Lisa's organization. Well, their whole organization is toxic.
Right.
Their downline, who were my leaders, were in support of domestic violence, basically, because they never helped me.
Right. Yeah.
And she was just so appalled by this, and ultimately I was just like, don't call me again. She called me a week later. I was getting a massage. I had a massage appointment, and this massage therapist is also a really good friend of mine, and so she was able to schedule me later in the day. And so I had my massage appointment, and I answered my fucking phone during this time because I didn't know who it was, and I fucking should not have. And it ended up being her. And she was trying to get my name, and I was like, no, I told her my name.
They were trying to get your name.
Oh yeah, I was trying to get
because I'm sure she went and like told them.
Yeah, oh yeah, she did, and they were trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah.
And I told her my name was like Annie or something. Like, eventually she probably could have just like given my phone number out, and they could have figured out that way.
I'm sure they had your information.
Right. So I'm sure there was a communicate sent up somewhere about me.
Do not talk to her.
Yeah. So my advice, if you have been approached by somebody like this, enter at your own risk, but this is my experience. And actually, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people expressing their experiences. In fact, there's a YouTube channel. I think it's Zay, Melody, and Seven is one of them. It's this couple who was in the same area as me. They actually name drop. So if you want the real scoop,
the real tea,
you got to go check them out on YouTube. But if enter at your own risk, you can make your own decisions. I'm not going to try to influence you one way or the other. These are my experiences, and I stand by them. This is 100% true. All of this shit happened. I'm just saying, beware.
Be careful.
Be careful out there, friends, because like Corey said, toxic relationships aren't just romantic. They're in your personal life too, and you have to be really careful. I think one day we should do an episode about red flags.
Yes.
And what that looks like. So stay tuned for all our fun stuff. Corey, where can they follow us at?
You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at xsandt_podcast.
Also, if you have a story that you would like to submit to us, definitely send us an email.
Gmail email.
We'll link that as well below. And if you have a story, again, as much or as little information as you'd like, we want to give our platform there for people to speak out on the things that they have gone through in their lives. And you have a voice, and your voice matters.
It does.
We are so glad that you came here to listen to our tale. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.